start of the season was a pretty impressive performance against Melbourne. What was the main thing you took out of the game upon review?
Just our ability to stick at the task, and then the way we they played the second half and we finished full of run, and the contest as the longer the game went was a really good sign for us, and so really the consistency over the entire team. So all of those things contribute to a really good start for us.
Obviously, a lot was said about Isaac's performance, the 13 clearances, I think near career high in kind of contested possessions as well. In terms of his move to the midfield, could it have gone any better?
Yeah, look, he's played a fair bit of midfield footy in the past. He's been there during courses of many games over the last couple of years. It was maybe a bit more time obviously on the weekend, but his ability to be able to play two-way footy, he's really hard at the contest, as we see, but he's also an incredible runner, and so his ability to be able to go from inside to out and then run and keep his run up for the entire 4 quarters was really important, and feel like we've got some options that can go through there, and all of them can run, and that's an important aspect to games, and certainly from last week and again this week that'll be important again.
What does it say about his leadership experience that obviously Millsy, Parker and Adams out, that he can kind of step up and help some of the younger guys who are still there in the midfield?
Yeah, he's been good. I mean, we've got, I think, last week we had 6 23 and under midfielders, and we'll probably have the same again this week against another really experienced midfield group. We've probably played the 2 most experienced midfield groups in last week and this week, and we'll have another young midfield group this week. And he's the older one, but he's not that old, and so but his ability to be able to help in the contest and really lead the way in the way the game's played, and win at the source, but then also run from the source has been important, and the other players really enjoy that different mix that we've got in there.
Is that the new standard for him now, John, given he is a senior player?
He's an All-Australian half forward, so he's been a reasonable player for us over the last couple of years. So he's a quality player. I mean, I think his standard's pretty much set. I mean, he's a very good player. So we're not sort of looking at that over the years. He's played some terrific footy for us, and so wherever he plays, whether that's forward or midfield, wherever we need him, wherever the team needs him, he'll adapt and he'll be a presence for us. And we don't expect him to be the best player every week. He plays his role. This week he played his role really well, and other weeks there's going to be others that need to step up, and that's the way it goes. Yeah.
Another big stage for Brodie against another former team. Are you mindful at all of how much attention there is on one player so early in the season? He's obviously very experienced. He seems very calm with all that stuff, but are you mindful of that at all?
Well, up here it's not too bad. It's a bit different. It's not. Whilst there might be you've got a bit of outside noise about it. In here, it just go. He was in here on the Friday, the day afterwards. Going about his work, preparing and recovering and working. He knows. He's an experienced player, so he understands. All sides of the spectrums, but he's able to go about his work here. He gets down the beach, does his recovery. Hopefully, he doesn't get bitten by anything, and then comes to footy and goes to work. So, he's able to keep a pretty level head. He knows what's going on, and he understands. The last week was a big game. This week's a big game, but he also knows about. He's comfortable in his approach and how he approaches games.
He seems like he's got a different perspective on things. Teammates say that about him a lot. Does that maybe help in terms of dealing with everything that goes on around him in these first 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think so. But once again, it's probably something that you guys talk about. But internally, it's not. When he gets around here, he gets around. It's nothing. There's no bigger focus than that. We don't sort of put a big focus on it. He did a good job last week, played a great job for us, and then he gets to work the next day. So, once you start the season, you get into the routine of the season, and any of the outside noise, it's sort of what matters really is the internal focus. And he knows that he's just after his job every week. We don't expect him to be the best player every week. It's unrealistic to expect that, but he had a good start, and he'll continue to do a really good job for us.
Obviously, a big test early on against 2 of the better midfields, Melbourne and then Collingwood, and a great, first step against Melbourne in terms of turning those clearances and contested possessions that were a bit of an issue last week. Is that a real thing that you kind of identified early, that we can test ourselves against 2 good sides early in the year to see where we're at?
Yeah, well, I mean, we know that we play 2 top 4 teams at the start of the year, and I'm not sure anyone else does that. So that's a tough start, and we we got last week out of the way. This week's going to be another tough one. If you looked at Collingwood's numbers last week, I thought Giants were terrific. But Collingwood had more inside 50s, more scoring shots, and did a lot right in their numbers. If you look at their numbers themselves, they did a lot right. So whether they get Howe back this week, there'll be some things that they can take out of that game that were actually pretty good. So we go into this week knowing it's going to be a huge task. It's a massive crowd. Hopefully there's a lot of Swans supporters buy their membership this week and get along to the game as well, and we can have a big game against a quality opponent that everyone's looking forward to. So we really look forward to it.
John, you obviously have been a big part of the fight against racism within the Swans. You also played with the Cracker brothers at North Melbourne. Just want to get your thoughts. What do you think about this class action? And did you hear any of these racist insults when you were a player?
Not when I was coming through. I was only young, but I only played. I think it might be 1 year. I think at the very start of it, so I can't recall any of that. But I think, and I don't know enough of the detail behind it, and so it's hard for me to comment on the specifics of it. Hopefully the industry's come a long way now, and after what we all see across the whole community, that everything's changed for the better. And I don't know the details behind it, other than the fact that let's hope that society keeps moving forward.
In terms of the forward profile looking this week, obviously started with Wixie as the sub, and then Joel sort of came off. Is that the sort of thing that you're looking that we'll see how that plan works for a couple of weeks, or is it just dependent on Collingwood?
Yeah, it depends upon a number of things. It depends upon what their best setup is. It depends upon not just the forward setup, what happens on ball, how much time we want Brodie to spend on ball, how much time Hayden. All of those things come into it, and so it's not just the forward setup. It's a number of different things. It's a really tough night here. It was really humid, and it was really tough conditions for tall forwards last week, and the conditions may be a bit different this week, knowing that it still could be a bit slippery. But we'll just have to wait and see, and we're confident in the flexibility we've got in our team to be able to throw a number of different looks, whether it's a smaller forward group at different times, whether we can go a bit taller. We think we've got some options there that hopefully give us the ability to be able to hit the scoreboard.
Obviously injuries made it a little bit harder last year to kind of rotate, but when you got guys like Pete Adams and Sam Reid who are there or thereabouts as well, is that good to put a bit of pressure on some of those younger tools to make sure that they know they've got to perform?
Well, it just gives us options, and we're really played on the weekend in our VFL team and did a pretty good job. But he'll sort of, when he's ready to play, he'll play. We don't want to play him beforehand. We want to make sure we give him the best possible preparation, knowing that when he's confident that hopefully he feels ready to go, and he's able to play a bit of footy for us without the fear of injury. And so we're mindful of making sure his preparation is really good. Pete's ability to play in the ruck, as we saw in the practice game against Brisbane, that he was able to get some good minutes in the ruck as well. So we understand we've got a couple of options there that if we need to, we can turn to. But it's also, those guys have done a pretty good job for us generally over the last few weeks as well.
You tagged Nick Daicos in the past with reasonable success. Are you likely to go that way again?
It's very difficult to do. It's very difficult to stop a player like Nick. Last year I think we might have gone in at half time just in front, and it was a cracking game of footy. And but we know that Collingwood have got class all over the ground. Nick's one of the classiest players around, but there's plenty of others there as well. So we're talking about what we do at the moment. It's we feel like we've got some numbers we can throw through the middle of the ground, and hopefully over the course of the game that can really help us. But we also know the class of Collingwood and what their ability to be able to play four quarters is like. So we're sort of working through that and haven't come to a decision just yet.
John.
Taylor Adams, how's he tracking in this recovery?
Yeah, he's okay. Look, he's still a couple of weeks away. He's out of the brace, so he's getting around the place all right. But he'd just love to be out there, playing and training. But he's not able to do that just yet. But he's around the boys enjoying that.
Brodie's a couple of years removed, obviously, but Taylor's fresh out of the system. I mean, not that you've ever needed help, but do you go to players who play at former sides when they're coming up against their side that they were just playing for, so fresh out of the system?
I think every club does. I don't think that'd be a surprise. But it's also about knowing what they do really well, and we're fully aware of what Collingwood do well. I think everyone in the competition is fully aware of that, and Taylor's certainly got an enormous amount of respect for his ex-teammates and club. He just thinks they're a wonderful footy club and great players. So, we understand that. We sort of ask him about their players, and he said, well, they're all good players, and which they are. So, we've got to make sure we bring our strengths as well. And, it's a combination of looking at what Collingwood do really well and understanding what we do well.
Craig said after their loss that he thought they weren't aggressive enough down back in that contest and were maybe a little bit small back there as well. Do you think that they might rush Jeremy back because he does have some concerns in that area?
Got no idea. I'm having trouble picking our team, Adelaide and Collingwood's. So I won't sort of pretend that I'll be picking Collingwood's, but I'm assuming if he's fit, he plays. He's a very good player. So, but they work a system, Collingwood, regardless of personnel. And once again, their stats last week indicated they got a lot right, and GWS kicked accurately, and that's always difficult. It's one of the most important stats in footy is how well you convert. And other than that, the Pies did a fair bit right as far as they were able to get the ball inside their forward 50 and give themselves opportunities.
Just with Matt, I asked him
a couple more guys.
Same question, that you as a club seem to have great success in integrating young players and then making sure that they turn 50, 100, 150 beyond gamers. What do you think you do well internally that makes that happen?
Hopefully we recruit okay. I mean, you've got to get the right players in. That's very important. But we have a lot of faith in any of our players, and it doesn't matter what age they are. If they come into the system and they show some great ability to be able to work and learn, that they'll play pretty early on. And we've done that for a number of years now. We've been probably one of the younger teams in the competition over the last 4 years, and we've got a lot of footy into some young players, and we're still young. And but they've played a fair bit of footy together. We think that's a good sign. We've got a really good young group that are really important to our performances now, and there's a lot of them, and we're confident in that group. So hopefully that stays the same. They're not going to play at the top of their powers every week, but geez, they're learning a lot and they're playing pretty good footy, and we really have a lot of faith in them.
What do you see specifically in Matt Roberts that gives you so much faith, especially after last year?
Look, he played last year. He was playing quite well for us until he got injured. So we've had a bit of faith in him. He's very smart. He competes really well. That's what I've been pleased about. We know he's a good ball user and a smart midfielder who's gone back, but he competes well, competes overhead, competes at stoppages. So those are the things he does well, and what's shone through as a defender. He'll have his handful this week. He'll have some pretty handy forwards to deal with, and in front of a big crowd. But that's all part of it.
John, it's not really your style, but what did you make from the Giants with the warm-up drill, Mason Cox, and what did you also make of their petting zoo with Mason Cox?
I don't know how to answer that. You're right, it's not my style to comment about petting zoos. But I think that probably the start of it, which was the warm-up, it's important to get context in everything, isn't it?
Chris
Very
was
important.
saying on 360 last night that in terms of the fixtures with the teams that played in opening round getting 2 byes, that it gives a slight advantage, but it may be a necessary evil because it's a good concept. Do you see that advantage in 2 byes? Do you like it? Would you rather play more often?
I think Chris has got a great perspective on footy. I think he's able to sit back a bit, and even in those comments, he's also understanding that some things you need to happen for the good of the game. I mean, there's the grand final is played at the MCG on opposition home grounds every year. If you talk about equalisation, I think it's having a couple of games up here probably balances it out okay. And I think from Chris's perspective, he certainly understands that. He's been around a long time, and I think he's got a good perspective on it. And if you go through, I think one of the great, almost a myth, I guess, is the equalisation. That it's not quite equal when you have the MCG as your home as the grand final every year, and I think that's just a reality. But that everyone accepts that it's very difficult to get everything equal, and we deal with that all the time. And I just think it was a great concept. The opening round, I think everyone, for the greater good of the game, is on board with it. And I think across the competition, including Chris, is very open to that, and I think that's a wonderful thing for the game that everyone's broad enough to see that the opportunities we had up here, and hopefully everyone put on a good show, and the people that come to the game will come back next time, and we grow the game both in people that are watching it, but also people that are coming through and playing it. everyone benefits then.
So grand final.
Last one, guys.
Grand final up in Sydney next. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I mean, it's just, I mean, if you're talking about the growth of the game, wouldn't it be wonderful? You know, the game last year, if that was in Brisbane, or you know, those things are probably off the agenda, and I'll let the commission sort that out. But I just look at the opportunities, and I think the first step is that opening round up here was a wonderful opportunity. Great by the AFL to be able to do what they did. Great by the broadcasters to really support it. We're really pleased with that. Great by our fans to have so many people here in this courtyard before the game and watching the warm-up and then part of the march so early on a Thursday night. Have 40,000 plus here at the SCG was absolutely awesome. And so, you know, we're so thrilled with that. And we go to Melbourne this week. We're quite unique, and I guess us and Brisbane as far as having two supporter bases, pretty strong supporter bases, and we get a good opportunity to go down in front of our supporters and members in Melbourne and play in front of them this week. So I think we're very lucky in a lot of ways.
Thanks,
Look,
guys.
Thanks so much, Sean. Cheers.
Just one more.
Look, the numbers certainly stacked up around opening. Do you think it needs to be like Melbourne, the same teams every year to build that sort of its own tradition, or would you think it needs to change?
I don't know. I don't work in fixturing either, but I don't know. This year seemed to have a lot of the storylines, didn't it? Whether it was Dimmer going to the Gold Coast, or you know, we had Brody up here with Melbourne. Obviously, the prelim final last year with GWS and Collingwood. So there was a couple of storylines, I guess, to that, and I'm sure that'll evolve over the course of this year, and something will occur. Then you'll sit back and go, well, maybe that's worth doing again next year. But hopefully in the background, I'm really confident that the AFL, the industry, and the supporters are really behind it. And I think that's wonderful for all of us. Hopefully for you guys, all of us as a footy club, to be able to have opening round up here, I think is massive. And let's hope it continues.